Hello from North Carolina and welcome to our live Q&A special on holiday selling. In just a bit, I will be joined by guest expert Alexis Taylor of Clicksuasion Labs, and we will be sharing tips and insight on the holiday season. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rosalinda Cruz. I am the founder and Chief Business Development Officer of the ASOR Collective, where we help underrepresented leaders in fashion with strategic planning and advising. And our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive fashion industry by filling the leadership and ownership gaps in the apparel supply chain. So I actually want to make sure that I bring up our banner here. There we go. You should see our banner. For those of you who are joining live or who are catching the replay, please feel free to drop in the comments if you're team live, if you are team replay, and also let us know where you are joining from. This is our way of doing a little bit of a virtual mic check, and it looks like we already have one person who is joining us live. Hello, hello. Let us know where you are coming from. So in our time together, we are going to dive into strategic planning because that's my jam and that's what I do. And we're going to talk about holiday sales and consumer behavior. So let's get into it. All right. So one of the things that I typically do on my lives are these planning PSAs. Last year was my first time back in 4 months. So thank you for all the warm welcomes that I got from that live. But if you are following my planning cadence, the bulk of the planning for the holiday season should have been done last year, right? As you were working on your 2022 strategy. And then in January, at the end of the quarter, fine tuning things. And then in June, that's where you refine things, right? And then Q3, you're bulk creating content. And one of the things that I have found is that, many small businesses have found it really challenging to do planning ahead of time, especially given the uncertainty of the past few years. But my motto is stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I think that it's much, much easier to adjust the plan than it is to create one in the moment when you are under pressure. And I also find that when you are creating plans in the moment, you are more likely to make mistakes because you are panic kind of comes in and starts driving decision making. And I also feel like when you create unnecessary time crunches, that's again, like when you start making some mistakes. I'm going to take a sip of my water real quick. You guys know that I'm a thirsty gal here. And you'll notice the addition of a reusable straw there. That was a little treat I got for myself. Many of my clients have already done a lot of their 2023 planning, but for those of you who are looking for some additional support with their planning, I am going to be offering a few workshops before the end of the year. We'll go to our next slide here. So I mentioned this last week in our live. So I am going to be offering 3 workshops before the end of the year. This Friday is part 1 of a 2-part workshop on 2023 strategic planning. And that is specifically for founders in fashion, textile, and in retail. It's a 2-part workshop. Each part is going to be 90 minutes. You can see on the screen what the dates are for those. If you are interested, I'm also offering an executive package, which includes part 1 and 2 of the workshop, a customized 2023 planner, as well as a one-on-one 60-minute consultation to review with me to review your strategic plan for 2023. 2023. So that's that. And I'm also offering another workshop, which is a workshop that I haven't offered for several years. But this is a workshop that I offered a few years ago because I had so many people coming up to me and wanting me to help them start their fashion business. And that's not necessarily what I do, but I can certainly introduce you to people who can do that. But I think that the internet makes things look very easy. And a lot of people think they can start their fashion business and do it fairly easy. And that's just not the case. So I have created this 60-minute workshop, which is kind of a high octane 16 minutes that lets you know what you need to know when starting a fashion brand. So that is going to be happening, I believe, December 2nd. So if you are interested, please contact me directly or go to our website. So I'll make sure that I drop that link in the comments too, for those who are interested in that any of those workshops, to be perfectly honest. But I would like to bring on our special guest. So I am bringing. Hello, Alexis. How are you?
Good morning.
Yay. So welcome to Alexis Taylor, who is our guest expert today from Clicksuasion Lab. Alexis, it is so nice to have you be a part of this special. I always like to give people a little bit of time so they can do a little bragging about who they are, what they do, and what makes you you. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I am very excited to be joining you today on your live stream and be giving some insights on holiday spending and all of the fun consumer behavior things. As Rosalinda said, I am Alexis Taylor. I work for Clicksuasion Labs as an associate marketing consultant. We are a full service marketing agency that closes the loop between academic research and innovative brands to influence over 1 billion decisions. We focus a lot on the consumer decision-making portion, the consumer behavior portion of marketing. We like to say we help you figure out why we click. So that's why I'm here today, help give a little bit of insight on behavioral decision-making, especially in the holiday season. We're located here in Pinehurst, North Carolina, so it's very chilly out here today as well. So hopefully everyone is staying warm where you are today.
Yay. And if you are not following Clicksuasion Labs, please do so on all of their social media platforms and especially on LinkedIn. I love following you guys, get a lot of great information from your social feed and also from your emails. And I love the fact that we're neighbors too, because I'm just a few towns away in Sanford. Exactly. All right. So are we ready to dive into some holiday forecasts?
Let's go.
All right. Bring this down. I think we can do that. There we go. Just making a little bit of an adjustment. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to ask of those people who are watching, whether you are watching live or catching a replay, is what areas are you seeing the biggest challenges in your business? And now you guys can see some statistics here. This was actually a survey that was done last holiday season. And one of the things that or some of the things that people talked about was pricing was definitely a challenge. They were seeing a lot of increase in pricing due to strains on the supply chain. And this year, I know that with inflation, that's definitely a concern, although I'm not sure what its ranking is going to be. And then also just the growth of e-commerce and promotional activity. It's interesting because I find that a lot of times when people don't do the planning necessary for the holiday season, they think that the promotion will solve it. And while, it can definitely bring in some sales, I also find that it ends up eaten into your margins, right? So that isn't always the best strategy. But before I move on to my next slide there, do you have any thoughts that you want to add to that while I take a sip of my water, Alexis?
Well, you made great points, Rosalinda. And yes, with the promotional activity, you can feel the urge to, if you haven't backwards planned, if you haven't fully planned for Q4, which sometimes we forget to do, you can end up with this flurry. You had mentioned in your planning PSAs that you get overwhelmed, you create unnecessary stress for yourself. You also kind of create this unnecessary stress for your consumer as well. Everybody feels like they need to inundate, but your consumers are being inundated by everyone who's currently trying to promote and sell to them. And you don't want to get caught up in that promotional flurry of trying to stand out and push yourself. It becomes a little spammy, and you might actually have the opposite effect that you want in your promotional activity. So be diligent in your planning, and then also be diligent in the content that you're promoting as well, and make sure that it is targeted versus being constant. A little bit goes a long way a lot of the time with your promotional activity.
What an excellent point. And I honestly, like, one of the things that I tell people too is that, when you think about what's happening, right, in the holiday landscape, there, like, people are just slashing prices left and right. And especially for small and medium sized businesses, we can't always compete with these bigger brands. And so if you can't compete with them on price, where you can compete with them is on service, right? So how are you highlighting the services you offer instead of trying to, offer discounts and, and play the price game? So,
Precisely.
yeah. All right. So, holiday forecast. Before we get into technically forecasts for holiday, I wanted to just recap the 2021 holiday season. And according to the NRF, which is the National Retail Federation, 2021 holiday sales grew 13.5% to a record 88 uh, $886.7 billion, which exceeded their forecast and set a new high for holiday sales. And that growth was driven by pandemic factors, and it was a well above 4.9% of a 10-year average, which is just like, completely mind-boggling, especially because in speaking with business owners, I know that over the last several years, there have been, just so much uncertainty, right? I also know that we talked about pricing. And one of the things that we are seeing is, we're experiencing some inflation at this point. I know that at least in the retail space, we are also seeing some increasing in pricing still from supply chain issues. But one of the things that I actually reported on earlier this year is the fact that there was a consolidation from 9 major shipping companies to 3. So they basically formed an alliance to control the majority of ocean shipping in the world. So that price is something that we definitely started to see earlier in the year and are definitely continuing to see here. And there was one more thing that I wanted to say here. Also, last week, a lot of companies started doing their reporting on their Q3 earnings. And some things that came in is that gross domestic products rose by 2.6% in the third quarter. So yay for those companies who are reshoring, that we're seeing those numbers come through in that statistic. And then also in September, consumer spending rose 0.6% from August. And again, that is due to just the strong demand that we're seeing from consumers. So what else do I want to say here? Alexis, any thoughts? I was monologuing a little bit.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I was very interested in the hearing about the shipping alliance that's formed. That's great to know. I had owned a small business at the beginning of COVID, and trying to get things across the ocean was a feat. So to hear that things are moving along is fantastic. I can say that we have seen, our firm did some research into the state of the U.S. consumer recently, and we have noticed that we do have kind of an economic downturn at the moment, but it is not. We don't seem to see a huge change in spending habits. However, we are seeing a little bit of a change towards a lot more credit card purchases. We're kind of shying away from cash and debit at the moment. It's a little bit of a spend it now and worry about it later kind of situation. And I think we're going to see that a lot with holiday spending. You will probably see more frequently credit card purchases versus debit purchases if you have an e-commerce site, or if you have an actual retail location, you're going to see more credit card purchases versus cash or debit. We are also seeing a little bit of a trend towards people are currently more willing to shop around for brands. So if you're a little known brand, if you're an up and coming brand, people are really, with the current state of the economy, are looking to find new places, new brands as well. And it's not just the economy as well, with the rise in things like TikTok, where a lot of people are advertising their brands now. You have a lot more diversity in the e-commerce realm, especially where you're seeing a diversity in people wanting to find new places to shop. So now is the time also to take advantage of that with your brand, especially if you're new, if you're up and coming. Start expressing your diversity from the major brands, and I believe you'll start to see an uptrend in brand loyalty come your way.
Oh, that is really great. And one of the things that I talked about, and something that I have definitely seen increase since the pandemic, is that consumers are rooting for the little guys, right?
Yes.
So not only are they looking for these unique brands and this unique product offering, but they really are rooting for the little guy. So that is actually really, really great to hear. A couple of other fun facts that I wanted to share about and I don't know if they're so fun. I try to be fun, but
I find all facts fun.
I know, right? So the holiday selling season is really defined as November and December. And I know that I wanted to kind of pause there, because I know that this year and even last year, a lot of probably more of the bigger brands started doing their marketing in October, because they were trying to stretch out that holiday selling period. But really, in terms of, industry standards, it's defined as November and December. I also know a lot of smaller brands who don't even start until either, sometimes the week before, Black Friday, Cyber Monday week, but sometimes they actually start off with Small Business Saturday and have that be the launch of their holiday season. I think that it's just important for you to do what's right for your brand, and also just be consistent in that. Another fun fact is, I keep on saying fun, but
it's all fun.
Yes, exactly. So holiday sales typically represent about 19% of annual sales. And the other thing too is that retail is the nation's largest private sector employer, contributing 3.9 trillion to the annual GDP and supporting 1 in 4 U.S. jobs U.S. jobs in the U.S. So that's 52 million working Americans. So another reason for you to do a little extra shopping, and then even more so support, small businesses. So I'm going to bring up my slide again.
Well, I'm going to circle back really quickly to what you were talking about with the small businesses and starting your sales at a later point, starting your promotions at a later point. That's actually something that we recommend to the brands that we work with, because you want to do. We like to encourage scarcity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be actual scarcity, like, you know, our toilet paper shortage that we experienced in 2020, and a lot of the things that we've seen in the grocery stores. But if we put a time pressure on our consumers, if we tell them, you know what, yeah, all of the big brands are starting. I mean, I believe I got my first Black Friday sale on November 1st, like, or it might have been Halloween. It was ridiculous this year. Like, it might start in July, like in 3 years. However, but if you can, if you can push that time pressure, that scarcity, that's more likely to increase your consumer to press add to cart and check out as well. Because you don't want to be that person that is available 24/7. Yes, you would love for your consumers to want to shop with you 24/7, but you're not going to necessarily set yourself apart from the big brands and make a name for yourself if you are available 24/7. If you can build that time crunch, build that scarcity for your consumers, they're more likely to shop with you during that week. And they'll feel like they got something really special from you. One of the big things that is important for consumers right now is an experience. They're shopping more experientially versus just shopping to shop. So keep that in mind too when you are putting together your strategy for your holiday promotions.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more about the experience that customers are looking for. I find that, you know, being able to do you know, private events, right, where you invite your VIP customers, or doing trunk shows, or even offering private shopping hours. And, you know, you can offer a cocktail hour where people can get together with their friends and family and kind of have the store to themselves. Those are all great ways that I've seen people offer a unique experience, which also does sort of speak to that scarcity piece that you were mentioning, because it's not available to everybody, right?
And if you can Instagram it, yes, you're good. You're golden. Everybody does it for the gram these days. So.
I know. I'm not so good at Instagram. I think I need to work on my Instagram game a little bit. But so what are they saying about holiday selling this year? So here's some statistics again from the NRF. So retail sales, again, they're defined by November and December sales, but they are actually predicting that the growth is going to be between 6 and 8% over 2021. So that will bring us to a total of 942.6 billion and 960.4 billion, which again is just insane. And one of the, as I was reading through this report, I'm just going to read this little quote here from Chief Economist Jack Kleinhens, who said, there are many factors impacting holiday forecasts, but business conditions are generally positive as consumer fundamentals continue to support economic activity. Despite record level inflation, rising interest rates, low levels of confidence, and consumers have been steadfast in their spending and remain in the driver's seat. So that is actually really, really great to hear.
Yes, so you'll actually see we're kind of in this pattern right now where the travel industry, of course, has seen a huge increase over the last year because everybody was kind of burned out from all of the COVID restrictions and not being able to go places. And we're kind of seeing the same trend here with retail, is that people were kind of stuck at home. They were just doing discretionary spending, you know, where we were just worrying about online groceries and the essentials and things like that. And now people are kind of reached this like post-pandemic burnout a little bit, and then the state kind of the world and the economy. And there's a lot of retail therapy going on right now too. So we're starting to see a little bit of an increase in retail spending because of those things as well. There's a lot of emotional factors driving retail spending right now as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, for those who are joining live, please, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I know that I've been able to see a few questions from LinkedIn. I'm not sure if we're able to pull up questions from Facebook. So I'm sorry if you're dropping questions and they're not coming up. And again, if you are watching the replay, please feel free to also drop comments as they come up and you're watching. I will be sure to go back and answer any questions I can, and also direct any questions towards Alexis also. So consumer behavior. I know that we have been talking a little bit about this throughout, and there's actually an interesting study that I wanted to bring up. But any other little tidbits that you want to share before we dive into that, Alexis?
Not at this moment, but I'm sure I'll come up with something.
If you notice, Alexis, what I've been doing is asking you questions so that I can sneak in a sip of water.
I know my gorgeous little pink Starbucks cup has made an appearance once or twice as well.
Yes. Is no problem. No problem. All right. So we're going to go to the next slide here. All right. So this is actually a really interesting study. And I think that this one here more specifically to people in a sustainable fashion space. But Bain & Company did some research and came up with this report. They did this in partnership with the World Wildlife Federation. And one of the things that they talked about is how brands can embrace sustainable fashion. And some of the statistics that they shared is that 15% of global fashion consumers are highly concerned about sustainability and consistently make purchasing decisions to lower their impact. And that impact could actually be increased more than 50% in the coming years. So one of the things that they did is they actually had some really, really interesting graphics that they shared, but they broke the customers into 5 different personas. And you can see, hopefully, I'm going to actually hopefully you can see that. If not, please reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to share this article and this report so you can nerd out the same way that I did when I was looking into this information. But basically what they did is break people out into these 5 personas, from the champion, the idealist, the good citizen, the opportunity shopper, and the person who is indifferent. And you can see on the left-hand side of this graph, some questions that came up. So what is their willingness to take action, to take sustainable action? And you can see that the champions are very willing. The idealists are usually, the good citizens also usually, and the opportunity shoppers, well, sometimes, and the person who's indifferent is low, which I feel like is pretty standard, right? But one of the things that they found is that the decision-making gap, and I don't know if that's the right terminology, close when you were talking about quality of product and the longevity of product, that you were actually able to engage all 5 of these different consumers. You were able to engage all 5 of these different consumers based on communicating the quality and the longevity of your product. So I thought that was really interesting. And I do think that, one of the things that that really brings sort of the bees to the honey when it comes to discussing sustainable products is to talk about the attributes of the product, right? And also make that information easily accessible to, to your consumers. If they're shopping on your website, you don't necessarily want to, stinkers, that's that's our timer that we're running out of time. I'm going to hit snooze here for a minute here. Um, so, I lost my train of thought. So, if they are shopping on your website, just, making it easily accessible for them to find the attributes of the product. And also, if they are shopping in a traditional brick and mortar store, think about, signage or even hang tags that really speak to the quality of the product. So, Alexis, I don't know if you have anything that you would like to add to that.
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, so I go back to TikTok because TikTok right now is one of the biggest places that brands are influencing decision makers, especially your sustainability champions and your idealists. Those are the people that are not only concerned about social status, because you are going to find quite a few people on TikTok that are the social status, the social influencers. But they are also the ones who are concerned about societal and the world, the environment, those kinds of things. And sustainability is going to be very, very good for them. There is a very popular brand. Currently, it's an accessory brand that markets their accessories are made out of recycled plastic bottles, which is awesome. It's great for sustainability. It's great for the environment. They're trending really, really well right now. They have a higher than normal price point for something for flats. People are willing to buy, however, because they feel like they are contributing positively to the sustainable fashion industry by purchasing something that is taking, 20 plastic bottles out of the ocean, 20 plastic bottles out of a waste management site. And they're also the one thing that this particular brand likes to push more than the recyclable sustainable factor is that they can be thrown in the washing machine. So you're right. You find a balance between quality and use functionality and that sustainability portion, because you will find towards the end your indifference, your opportunity shoppers, they're going to be the ones that, if I'm spending this much money, if I'm paying this price point for this item, it better last me. I better have great customer service with it. Their needs, their pain points are going to be a lot different than necessarily the sustainability champions. So you kind of have to play to both sides of the aisle a little bit when it comes to addressing pain points. You want to address that social status, but you also want to address the quality and the longevity of your product, especially if you have a little bit of a higher price point, which you typically do with sustainable products, just because the manufacturing itself is a little bit higher of a price point as well. But you are making quite a big impact on the industry and around the world, and for the environment. And so yeah, you just have to kind of find a happy medium to address all of those. But then also sometimes you decide, I only want to advertise to the sustainability champions, and that's okay, because it will still bring shoppers to your brand. And you don't necessarily have to please everybody all the time. If you decide that you couldn't care less about the indifferent shoppers, then don't promote to them, don't advertise to them. Advertise to the people that you want to work with as well.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said that better. And I know that last week during my live, I talked about t-shirts and how no two t-shirts are the same, and how, what sometimes I work with a lot of people kind of like in that space. And sometimes I hear friends and family balking at the price of a t-shirt. But one of the things that I say to them is that, right, the t-shirt quality kind of runs the gamut, right? You have your sort of undershirt, your sort of, at this end of the spectrum where be it, a Hanes Fruit of the Loom type shirt, to, a high-end, luxury t-shirt, which can, cost hundreds and sometimes, even $1,000, right? But what goes into that pricing is, the quality of the product, what materials are being used, the treatment of their employees. Is this something that's being mass produced in a factory, or is there an artisanal quality to it, right? And also sometimes by pricing, you do create that scarcity mindset too, right? So so that's another way that that you see that kind of taking shape. Any thoughts? I know that we had our timer go off, but any thoughts before we kind of wrap things up here, Alexis?
Well, really quickly, going back into what we were just discussing, I thought I would share this little anecdote. We like to tell this story in the office. If you walked into Mercedes-Benz of Raleigh and they had this gorgeous convertible Mercedes-Benz on the spinner in the middle of the store, and they had a great big bow on it, a great big sign that said, "Today only $1." Most of the time, if you ask a consumer whether or not that they would purchase this Mercedes-Benz for $1, the answer is actually no, because the price doesn't match the value. So when you are pricing your products and you're afraid that you have a higher price point that might scare your consumers off, just remember that the value of your product is equal to the value, your price point as well. Because, if you're trying to express to your consumer that you have a quality product, pricing it too low will lower the intrinsic value of your item. So don't be afraid when you're setting your price point that consumers will be scared of it. The value has to match the price point, and people might actually shy away from believing the value of your product if you set it too low. So never sell yourself short if you can help it.
Great point. That I feel like was such an excellent point to end on. We will be sure to drop some contact information in the comments, and remember, our mission is to support a more diverse and inclusive, sustainable fashion industry by filling the leadership and ownership gap in the apparel supply chain. I will see you next time. Have a fantastic week. And thank you again to Alexis Taylor, our special expert guest. So have a great week, everybody.
Take care.